I think we have something like 15 minutes for questions. I would like to thank you all in this amazing panel, and I think somehow this first panel of what seems to be a wonderful conference somehow is addressing the main title of the conference. Beyond the Canon, because we saw how this practices in museums, libraries, and in historiography, publishing endeavors, somehow surpass this canon of photography, and somehow dismantle, as you, Alexandra, mentioned, the hierarchies. So. Could somebody from the audience might have a question first? Yeah, please.
Thank you all for very, very wonderful presentations. Maybe I'll give you
Thank you for some really wonderful presentations. I just had a question for Alexandra, because I really found your talk about how the meaning of the building of institution and the education inspired by Nochlin very, very fascinating. But I also became interested in and then you show how photography was marginalized all over and right up till now. But then I wondered about the 19th century. I mean, you basically talk about photography as an art form. But I've been working on 19th century women photographers, and most of them use photography as a means for their own personal, economic, political, sexual independence. And then learning from, going to these conferences, last in Bologna, I really understood that how this is not something that's special for what we thought was a very particular Nordic phenomena, but it's all over the place. And that question is also for the keynote, Marie Robert, as well. How was it in France in the 19th century? So I wonder about that, if you have made some observations about that in addition to your study about the period from the 1960s and up to today.
Thank you, Sigrid, for the question. It is indeed quite difficult to package everything in a 20-minute presentation, and I must admit that the 19th century is not my area of research, but there has been very interesting research that has been very recently published, and I mentioned at the very beginning of my introduction, Mariana Carali, who actually look into in great detail and unearth really important information about 19th century studio practice by women, because very often their contributions were hidden because there were women taking over perhaps family businesses after the death of a partner very often, that they had to disguise themselves by only using their initials so that they wouldn't be recognized as female practitioners. So, and because of the time there was very few publications. There was a ladies' newspaper, Efemerida Don Quirion, which was an important document to retrace those histories. There's still a lot of work to be done in the area. We do have a fantastic collection in Greece at the Benaki Museum, 19th century photography, that is run by our colleague Ali Kitsirialou, who is also an expert in 19th century photography, and who's trying to kind of put together again, these very fragmented histories of women and how they operated and how they managed to find ways of surviving during the 19th century. Hopefully, when we have that the special issue of the history of photography published, Marianne's text will also be available to read. Thanks.
And if I can just add some things, yes, of course, I think that the show Qui a peur des femmes photographes and the part in the Musée de l'Orangerie was showing a lot of practices which were related with commercial and professional considerations. And in particular, my colleague Thomas Galifo made a super huge, important work about that. And yes, we can say that there were so many women, French women, active in studio photography, and such as Laure Braqueuet-Gouin. She was a very interesting person because she's not known anymore, but her father and her husband are known. And Raisa Reicher has written a super text in the Histoire mondiale des femmes photographes to show that very important erotic iconography was made not by the men, but by Laure Braqueuet-Gouin in the 40s, in the 1940s. And all in the history of France, there is so many women having a studio which gave them autonomy, money, and recognition, such as Geneviève Disdery. You may know her. She was the wife of the famous Disdery. But when she died, the papers of the heritage wrote that she was unemployed. It's amazing how we can so easily, so quickly erase the story and the implication of women in all the fields of activity. And I'm also thinking of Madame Lafont. She was making religious reproductions of religious imagery. Or Maria Chamfort, she was a woman who was walking with her camera in the street of small towns in France. So yes, of course, it's a huge history to discover, rediscover.
I was wondering, because there are studies, for example, Elizabeth Macaulay studies about French studio photography. That doesn't mention anything.
We need for video recording.
Yeah. So are these studies published? But because I was wondering, because there is Elizabeth Macaulay study about French studio photography in the 19th century, where there are no women mentioned. So this is later research you refer to now, I guess.
Yes, for instance, there are some other Thomas Galifo here.
Yes, my colleague, for instance, published some interesting works about Maria Chamfort and some examples like that. I'm not sure I have understood your question.
Yes, because I haven't seen anything published about those you mentioned.
Yes. For instance, in the review Photographica, which is very interesting review, an academic review, you could find some information.
There is a question there.
Hello. I had a question for Catalina. I was just curious about the way in which what your agency is as a librarian to add new books to the inventory and the collection as you're sharing the database. Are you purchasing and acquiring books for the library? It's not on.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. My agency is cataloging only, no acquisition. Acquisition only like usuary only. And sometimes the cataloging is an invisibility word, but it's very important for visibilize in other ways of photo books in other publications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Following this, thank you for the panel. It was very super rich and amazing start of the conference after the keynote, of course. Following this reply of yours, I have also a question for you. I hope I will make myself clear. If not, we can exchange in Italian and Spanish. I might have missed this information from your paper, but I didn't understand which is the basis of your database, in the sense that you retrieve of the information that you have presented from a central catalog of university libraries, and if so, I was wondering whether in your practices you have thought about the fact that this centralized catalog might have also be impacted by the structure itself that tend to hide certain works, for instance. What happened, for instance, in Italy at a certain point is that all the books by women were put in the sector of sociology, and basically became more or less invisible in the other disciplines and in the other sectors. So I'm curious to know if something similar has happened, and in the case, how you have balanced that. Thank you very much.
The structure of the university is very complex, and the database history too. And my work is basically research on database. And in this case, I compared the database with the existence in the libraries. And for me, it was very important know the reality, in fact, no? More of this kind of anthologies is only for a little circuit, short circuit maybe, the curators and artists. And for me, the life of the real life of books maybe must be in users' hands, not only in the gremial hands. And this central database is very important because it's the major university of the large university, public university in Mexico, and the access is public for everyone, not only for community of the university. That way, and the budget is very huge, and it's a public budget for the libraries too. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you all for your wonderful presentations. What's come up for me very particularly is, how one highlights all the inequalities, particularly the male-female inequalities, which I think we've all lived with in our own personal lives. Another inequality that really is important from my perspective, because I come from the southern hemisphere, is the north-south inequality. You know, the fact that the Northern Hemisphere is so well documented, or maybe so little documented, and we're only now discovering it, but certainly in the South there is so little documentation of women's lives and women's photography or women's art. And I think it would be wonderful if next time, perhaps Fast Forward might think of coming to South Africa, for instance. Little promo. Anyway, thank you.
We're going to South Asia. Just thought I'd say that.
There's a question there, and bye-bye.
Hello, thank you for the really wonderful presentations. I was really intrigued by the idea of value into the classification of the books, and I was wondering, okay, what gives value or devalues things? And we heard about colonialization and also wives that are trying to have a life beside husbands while being artists, and they're not mentioned. And I was thinking, can we have ideas of how we can reclaim this value-making, value-granting, or devaluing system? Like, do we have any ideas of how to claim that back?
Again, for Catalina, I guess. Okay, for all the panel.
Well, it's quite a complex question, obviously, and I think Katsaridou would. I think we'd all have a different answer based on what sectors we work in and the nature of our work. But I think it's a lot of kind of hard-going work, like what Katsaridou probably knows about with cataloguing and things like that. It's really diving into archives and doing that detective work to rectify things that have been erased, particularly women's contributions. And I think it was mentioned as well, the power dynamics in heterosexual marriages where women's contributions and labour and intellect is not valued and has been kind of eclipsed by that of the husband, and that happens across the art sector and across every sector there is. So it probably means looking into those relationships as well and picking apart work that's been attributed to each spouse, I would say. But yeah, from my perspective, in terms of tackling it at the National Gallery of Scotland, which is what I can speak to more easily, it is archival work and picking things apart, and that takes money and time. So ultimately it's, funding bodies seeing value in this and giving us the resources to be able to go into materials and histories that are there and really sift through them in detail to find the work that women have done, because it is there. I hope that wasn't too convoluted a response for you. Would anyone else like to answer?
Is it working? Well, I just found it fascinating somehow, but maybe in a negative way, that how these women of older generation, now in her 80s, 90s, they are completely, well, at first they seem completely, well, that it's okay that what they did, it wasn't so important. And, well, I think in Poland the problem is like that photography, well, it has been changing, but it has changed a lot, but still photography is a bit undervalued as an art. So research, if you are researching into photography, you are somehow very often considered as a bit minor to, if you are busy with like serious, but I'm just joking, of course, other arts. That's one thing, and then that's why it's so difficult also to. So there is work on two levels. First is just to. It's a cliché, but a lot of researchers say that the history of Polish photography in general is still not written properly, and then of course the second layer is just this, how to incorporate just women's contribution to that.
It's a very complex question because like in let's say in the West, so-called, photography, it's like more present in art markets. It's more valued, and still in Poland we are still in the process of doing that. So I think it might be the same a bit in Greece. So I think that's also kind of problem. Yeah? So there's a lot of job to do on many levels.
Thank you. And Baiba and Karen have a question too.
I think Baiba's next. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, all speakers. I think it's really great to hear the conference team about these agents and contexts, about photography by women, how they are processed and who are working with. So I have a question to Marta. Just like I wonder about your methodology, about, as I understand, I was very glad to hear about photo historian Wanda. Sorry, I don't say the surname. And I'm just like wondering, so she's still active, and how was your process to explore, to research her work? Was it like interviews that you made, or how was the process? Maybe, yeah. Thanks.
As I mentioned, she was my PhD supervisor, so we are just kind of close. Maybe not very, but yes, I interviewed her, and she's retired. She retired a couple of years ago, while her husband, same age, is still very active and has published a very thick book recently. I think she's a bit of disappointment. Well, she doesn't say that, but then when you talk to her, she's very happy to find out that people are still interested in her and her work, because she really lives in this notion that what she did was not very important.
So self-deprecating.
It was, in fact, it just my work is still work in progress, but it was in fact kind of my starting point just to see how these women really found it. Well, they did really something that we all, like we here, are interested in the history of photography, that we still refer to their works. And it's very important. They did amazing archival work with Krystyna Lejko. The other one I mentioned, that's she worked in the 70s, in the 80s without internet, no digitalized press or something, and it's very difficult to find more sources than she did back then. And they still say, "Oh, really? That's important what I did?" But yeah, it was mainly methodology. It was mainly interviews at this point, of course, and the publication.
I just wanted to thank you all for really interesting contributions, but I'm quite interested in Catalina's presentation, and I wanted to ask, puedo hablar en español, pero hablaré después con usted, but I'm going to talk in English so everybody understands. What is the relationship of the public library archive that you're referring to, that you got your data from, to the art school structure of Mexico?
Okay, it's huge. It's very important because there are, I think, like 5 libraries of. This was the structure of the university.
Yeah.
And they have different budgets, and the time for foundation is very different between.
Okay, what I want trying to ask you is, the art school, teaching art, in the public universities? Is there the art departments? Is this the library they use? Is this the only library they use, these big centralized public libraries?
It's very difficult thing in this way because they have a lot of resource for that. And in these generations, the users are less.
So are they going on the internet now? Is this what I want? Also curious about.
But yes, but it's I think it's a generation issue.
Yes,
right
of
now.
course. The other thing is that I've participated in Mexico City at Zona Maco, so in photography. So I know that there's a developing structure in the art market and photography in Mexico happening now. And it happens now for the last 5 years. And it's big. It's really, really big, international. So how is, I'm thinking of all those links and why the visibility of women in the northern countries, as was mentioned, and the western countries are more evolved, perhaps because the libraries have more money or more choice, or there's more flow of information into the libraries linked to the universities of contemporary photography and women in contemporary photography. And maybe in Mexico it's not the same, it's slower or it's more private. I'm wondering.
Mm-hmm. My start point is the difference in between the private world of the photo books and the public life of the photo books. And Zona Maco is not accessible for many people.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank all the speakers for this wonderful panel and the audience.